All right, you guys can hear me? Can you hear me? Yes or no? Oscar, you hear me loud and clear, my friend. Sweet. How about you, Mr. Rosario? Can you hear me, Mr. Rosario? Mr. Rosario, are you making pancakes again? Jordan. Yeah. All right, make sure you're here.
Yeah,
Yeah, what are you doing, bro?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, make sure you're paying attention. You're sleeping over there. All right, so remember, it's been a week, so you guys might have forgotten. Chapter 16, we had the aftermath of the whole alcohol incident. So remember, Woodrow was pretending like he was giving alcohol to that lady to kind of make her act crazy, so she jumped in the water. And then Gypsy got a little upset that he didn't get in any trouble for doing that. And in that last chapter, we see that the positive relationship between Woodrow and Gypsy is kind of getting a little bit strained. Um, Gypsy was a little upset that he didn't get any trouble. So Woodrow's just kind of annoyed by her, so he tells the story about the lady who kills her husband with her hair. And he basically just tells that story to piss off Gypsy to make it look like people with long hair are bad people or whatever. So this is the aftermath of that. Okay, this is chapter 17. For the rest of summer vacation, things were not quite the same between me and Woodrow, but we were polite to each other. We didn't mention the change. What change are they talking about? What change are we talking about? Jaskar, what change are we talking about? Make sure you're paying attention. You got headphones in yet? Yeah? Yeah, keep the headphones in. Yeah, I know, because I heard it before. It's crazy loud here. So make sure you have headphones in. Tiffany? Yeah, they're fighting. Good, Leafy. Leafy's paying attention. Yeah, make sure you're paying attention. Do me a favor, turn on screens, because I want to know who I have to call and who I don't have to call. And right now, there's a lot of people who are on the I'd call my house list. Yeah, make sure you're paying attention. I don't want to have to call your house if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Gracias. Uh, yeah, so remember, they're beefing with each other a little bit. Just it's kind of common. Last Saturday in August, Mama took me to Bristol to shop for new clothes like she did every year. I didn't ask Woodrow to go along, even though I knew he had never been there and he really wanted to go. I got dresses, skirts, and sweaters, shoes, and a topper for cool fall mornings. So some of you guys actually might not even know about Perth Amboy. Back in the day, Perth Amboy was like the big hot spot for like shopping. People used to go all over from all over the place to go to Perth Amboy to buy stuff. They had like lots of big stores. Nowadays, there's still stores, but it's not like everyone from other towns is coming to Perth Amboy to buy stuff. So before there were big malls, like Menlo Mall or Woodbridge Mall, everybody actually would go to like Perth Amboy to buy stuff. We had lunch at S&W Cafeteria and drove home late through the rolling hills of Abingdon and Lebanon. It was a beautiful drive, just me and Mama. We had a good time. Cole Station got its first stoplight at the intersection of Residence and Main, and we all trekked down there to see it, even Dog. So this seems like a small deal, but in this tiny little town, the fact that they put a stoplight was like a big deal. Everybody came there to like check it out. You have a question, Jasper? Yeah, keep yourself muted, dude. Your volume's on. Nice. Um, Grandpa was in the market for a new car, so Woodrow went around singing car commercial ditties. So this is again something different. When people wanted to advertise back in the day, uh, this is before like TV and internet. People would like make songs, and these songs would be on the radio just to like make people buy stuff. So Woodrow singing these songs. What a joy to take the wheel in your brand new Oldsmobile, and you got to drive it for to believe it. The Dodge for 55. Also, Ford, Ford, new kind of Ford, car of tomorrow by Ford. So he's singing these songs that you would have heard on the radio. Woodrow also had a new joke. Name me two cars that start with P. Of course, everybody said Plymouth and Pontiac, and Woodrow would come back, no, they start with gas. It's a joke, obviously. The apples started falling. Summer was dying. What type of figurative language is that? There's the answer. What type of figurative language is that? Hmm. Miss Hernandez, do you know? Summer was dying.
Personification.
That is personification. Good job. Was that you, Ayana? I think that was Tiffany. It looked like Cleveland was going to the World Series. Good job. There were no new developments in the Bell Prater case. Remember what happened to Bell Prater? Probably the most important thing to know about the story. What happened to Bell Prater? Jordani?
She got missing.
Yeah, she's missing. Make sure you're paying attention, man. You're like in outer space again. My old familiar nightmare came more often. What's that? Yeah, she disappeared, yeah. Now, something that we've been seeing a lot happen in the earlier chapters is Gypsy keeps having this recurring nightmare. It's a dream that she keeps having about something dying. So that when an author gives you clues about something in the future, it's called foreshadowing. So those dreams kind of have a deeper meaning, and you'll see that meaning come out in this chapter. So I'm kind of like telling you something. So later on in this chapter, these dreams that she's been having about something dead or dying or an animal, this is like means something later. My old familiar nightmare came more often, but with less horror. It didn't send me into hysterics anymore, so she's not so like frightened by it. Sometimes I'd wake up with a tear on my cheek, haunted by the memory of blood on the face of this dead animal. I would look out my open window at the stars at such times, and I could almost recall what it was this nightmare was trying to tell me. Almost. The ugly thing seemed ready to come and show itself to me. So again, there's this idea, this dream, that she can't figure out what she's dreaming about, just the fact that it's just some dead thing. School started back the day after Labor Day, and Woodrow and I advanced to the 7th grade. You couldn't call it high school yet, but it was in the same building as high school, and we'd be changing classes. On the first day, Woodrow and I found out that we were assigned to the same homeroom. Our teacher was new, a man from Eastern Virginia. Neither of us had ever had a man teacher before. Several of our classmates, including Buzz, Mary Lee, Franklin Delano, Flo, and Willie, were in our room again. We all sat there in new clothes before the bell rang, talking in hushed voices and sizing the teacher up. He was a middle-aged man with tiny blue eyes and a big red nose. He was wearing a long-sleeved shirt and a tie, which I thought was uncalled for in the heat. Already beads of sweat were popping out his forehead. I reckon each one of us was wondering what the school year would bring. I was secretly promising myself to make honor roll every 6 weeks, which was nothing new for me. I always made honor roll, and Mom always said, "That's my good girl." I wondered what she would say if I made straight C's. The bell interrupted my thoughts. "Good morning, young men and women," the teacher said. We pulled ourselves to attention and tried to look the part. "I am Mr. Collins, your homeroom and first period English teacher." Straight away, Woodrow wanted to know what was his relation to Floyd Collins, the poor man who got himself trapped in the Kentucky cave. "None whatsoever," Mr. Collins replied, "though I have read of that unfortunate man." That was a new one on Woodrow. He never had heard tell of two people bearing the same last name and being no kin at all, and he told Mr. Collins as much. Right, so, again, here, Woodrow doesn't believe that people with the same last name can't be related. Right, so he's kind of, like, doesn't understand it. But obviously, right, you're not always going to be related to the person with the same last name as you. Um, but, again, if you go back in time, probably, but not, you're not always related to the people with the same last name. Why, everybody knew a Prater was a Prater, a Honaker was a Honaker, and a Coleman was a Coleman, no matter where they lived. Same as dog was dog and cat was cat. You couldn't get away from it. Sometimes it was hard to tell if Woodrow was putting you on or not. So she doesn't know if Woodrow's lying about not thinking that these people are related. Well, perhaps somewhere in the far past, Mr. Collins conceded, all Collinses did come from the same hoose. What's a hoose? Woodrow wanted to know. That's how they say house in Eastern Virginia, Franklin Delano said, giving us a short lesson in dialect. My uncle lives in Fincastle, and out there they say about the hoose instead of about the house. Right, so you should notice that different people have different dialects, right? So if you go to different parts of the country, you'll notice that different people sound differently, right? So like if you've gone to like Brooklyn, you hear people with like a Brooklyn accent. If you go to New England, you hear people have a New England accent. How do the people in New England sound? Anybody know? They talk like this to Harvard. I got the Harvard yard. That's what they sound like. If you go down south, they have like a southern accent. Obviously, British people sound very different, right? So something actually kind of you'll notice about this area is we talk very fast, right? So people from New Jersey and New York talk very fast. If you go to like Wisconsin, I went to Wisconsin like 2 years ago. They talk like this. Hello there, sir. Can I help you? And they just everything they do is like super slow motion. Yeah, I was just like, really? That didn't bother Mr. Collins one bit. In fact, he said it was an amusing observation. I decided I was going to like him. I'm new here, Mr. Collins went on. Not only in your school, but in your town. I arrived in Cole Station only last week, and I'm staying at the Presbyterian Manse with the minister and his good wife. So I'd like to start learning some things about you and your families. Could we have some volunteers first? Of course, Woodrow volunteered. My name's Woodrow Prater. I live with my granny and grandpa Ball in a great big two-storied house. Woodrow paused and grinned at Mr. Collins, who grinned back at him. On Residence Street, we have... He's Belle Prater's boy, Buzz interrupted. You know about her, Mr. Collins? No, Mr. Collins said. I'm not familiar with that name. What's Buzz doing here? Why did Buzz bring up that? Tiffany? Miss Hernandez? What is the reason why he brought up Buzz? Why did Buzz bring up Belle Prater to Woodrow? Why would he do that? Yeah, she's trying to make. Yeah, he's trying to make him upset. Remember, Belle Prater's his mom. She disappeared, so now Woodrow's doing this. I mean, Buzz is doing this to Woodrow to piss him off. Again, he's kind of like a bully and a jerk. No, Mr. Collins said, I'm not familiar with that name. Tell Mr. Collins, Woodrow, Buzz went on with a devilish grin. Tell him about your mama disappearing into thin air and all. Everybody looked at Woodrow. I saw a shadow of pain flit across his face, but he collected himself just like that. Good idea, he said, cheerfully. It was like this. Mr. Collins, my mama, Belle Prater learned, the secrets of invisibility. I see, Mr. Collins said, politely. Go on. She wasn't like most grown folks. She was still a child in some ways. She wished on a star and played she had a fairy godmother, stuff like that. She made up swell stories for me about little people, and she believed in magic. You have to believe, to make magic work for you. Mr. Collins nodded. We saw this ad in the back of a Red Ryder comic book. Woodrow went on. I remember there was a picture of Little Beaver on the front cover. And the ad said, do you want to become invisible? Learn the formula of the gods. Order your invisible recipe today. And I gave an address to the order. I wanted it more than Mama did. So I don't think they still do now. I don't know. I haven't bought a comic book in, 40 years. But in the past, like old magazines and old comic books, they used to have like on the back cover, like order, and it would be like really weird, crazy stuff like this. Like, so it would be like order a potion for invisibility or order like just these weird things. And you'd have to like mail in money and like a postage stamp and they would send you this stuff or whatever. So this story about having things in magazines is real. Obviously the story about his mom being invisible, not so much. Yeah, so I don't know if you have a comic book, just look at the like last page. I don't know if they still have things that they like you can order. Like nowadays, it might be just like little trinkets and stuff, but like old magazines from back in the day, and like whatever. I remember it from barbershops when I used to go to barbershops when I was a little kid. That I would read the magazine, and at the very end, they'd have like all these like little weird stuff that you can order. Like they get mailed to your house. It was weird. Order it, Mama, I begged. I want to learn how to be invisible. Because I thought it would be fun to go around the other kids at school and hear what they said and go to them later and repeat it to them. So just for fun, we ordered the recipe. It was only 75 cents, and we took it out of our carnival fund. That's another thing Mama liked, the carnival. We always went over to Grassy Lake when the carnival was there. Our recipe came in the mail, and some of the things it called for were so outlandish, like a vulture's feather, a jack-in-the-pulpit petal, a squirrel's toenail, a quart of dew from a graveyard, a pint of mother's milk, a hair from the mustache of a man with a girl's name. She got that one, by the way, from old Leslie Matney before he kicked the bucket. Spit from a baby no more than 2 hours old, and I don't know what all. I forget all the rest. Right, so they ordered this recipe for invisibility and all those crazy weird things. Anyhow, I lost interest about it because it was too complicated. But Mama was so curious, her nose liked to twitch out of joint. She was determined to mix that brew, and she did. She plotted and planned and went skulking about the holler till she found all the ingredients that she needed. She stirred them up and let them steep for 3 days, like it said. When Daddy complained about the smell, she told him she was making sauerkraut. If Daddy had been sober, he would have known it wasn't the season for cabbage. Then on the fourth day, I come home from school and Mom was nowhere. Well, she was somewhere, but nowhere that you could see her. I searched the house, the barn, and called, but I got no answer. So I went into the kitchen and I sat down to a bowl of cornbread and milk, and I heard Mama say, "I'm here, Woodrow, right beside you." I about swallowed my spoon. "It's okay, Woodrow," she said. "I drunk only a little, so I'll be reappearing soon." And then I felt a rush of air on my arm like she was touching me. "The more you drink, the longer you stay invisible," she said. "Maybe we'll drink some together and go visiting next Sunday. Won't that be fun?" I said, "Joe Palooka." It was about all I could think of to say. Then she reappeared maybe an hour later, and she was so excited. "Next time I'll drink more," she said. "Lots more. Just think, Woodrow, you can go to the show, to the carnival, and not have to pay. And you can go on buses and trains or ships and planes even. Why, you can go anywhere." It was the next Sunday morning that she disappeared, and we haven't seen her or heard from her since. Woodrow sat down abruptly. So Woodrow has made this giant story about the fact that his mom disappeared because she did what? What did the mom do to disappear? What is the reason for her disappearance? Hmm. Yeah, she was invisible, right? So she ordered this invisible drink that she bought on the back of a magazine, and because of it, she's invisible. So he's making up a reason for why she disappeared. Obviously, again, we kind of see that Woodrow has these giant pieces of imagination. Um, Mr. Collins grinned. You could tell he didn't believe one word of what Woodrow had said, but he was going to along with the story. "Oh, and where, pray tell you, do you think she went?" he said. "New York City, probably," Woodrow said nonchalantly. "There's a doctor there who operates on crossed eyes and makes 'em straight. I know she'll send for me soon." Right, so he'd made up the story that the mom disappeared to New York and that she's going to get send for him. "What a lie!" Buzz hissed under his breath. Again, Buzz just being a jerk. "You've got quite the imagination, Woodrow," Mr. Collins said, "but let's remember the difference between fact and fantasy. Who's next?" About 3 people volunteered and told their things before I raised my hand. "I'm Gypsy Arbutus Lee Master," I said, "and I—" "Beauty is short name for Arbutus," Flo interrupted. "Don't you think it suits her, Mr. Collins?" "Very much so," Mr. Collins agreed. "Don't you think we should call her Beauty?" Flo went on sweetly. I felt an angry flush creeping up my cheeks. All right, so what's the 2 reasons why she may get mad from that? Why is she getting mad for being called Beauty?
Her dad used to call her that.
Yep, that's one reason. So the one reason she's pissed off is because her father used to call her that. What's the other reason why she's upset? Why does she not want to be called Beauty? There's another reason. Does anybody know the other reason for why she does not want to be called Beauty? It actually came up last chapter and the chapter before that. What's the reason why Gypsy does not want to be called Beauty? Miss Cologne, do you have any ideas? Yeah, the fathers. Yeah, so Josker just said that does have to do with her father because her father called it, but there's another thing that has to do with beauty. How does she feel about beauty, Josker? How does she feel about that idea of being beautiful?
I don't know.
Does she like being beautiful? Jeremy, does she like being beautiful? Yeah, no, she doesn't, right? So she doesn't like being beautiful. Everyone, in her mind, she thinks the only thing people see is her beauty. Yeah, exactly. So she's upset that people are focused on her beauty. So that's one reason she's pissed off, because she wants people to recognize her for other things. And then she's obviously upset because her father, who has passed, called her that. So she's angry, and then she screams out, "I can play the piano," which is obviously kind of weird, right? So this girl screaming this out would be like, "What?" The class fell silent in surprise, so everyone's looking at her like she's nuts. I was agitated under their watchful gaze, but I felt like I had to say something about me, the me that was hidden under this golden hair. So again, only people want to recognize her for her beauty. Woodrow can tell good stories, I stammered, but I can tell good jokes, and I make good grades, and animals like me. So now she's kind of like rambling on about all these things that are, people aren't noticing about her. My classmates seemed puzzled. I took several deep breaths and I tried to calm down. So, Buzz interjected rudely, so now Buzz is just being a jerk. I saw Woodrow bristle now. Woodrow's probably had enough of Buzz and all of his nonsense. I live on Residence Street with my mother and my stepfather, Porter Dotson. I concluded quickly and I sat down. Ah, Porter Dotson, Mr. Collins said. Yes, he is one person I have met since I've been here. A very fine man. Not as fine as my real daddy. So again, she's kind of like saying kind of like crazy things. The words came out of nowhere. His name was Amos Lee Master. He died when I was 5. Oh, I'm sorry, dear. Was it an accident? Suddenly my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. My mouth was so dry my lips stuck together. I pushed back my hair with shaking fingers, and I felt sweat trickling down the back of my neck. So obviously, whatever happened to her father is bothering her, and there's actual clues in terms of what's happening to her body, right? So she could feel it in her ears. Her mouth's going dry. Her lips are stuck, and she's sweating, and she's shaking. Okay. Yes, it was an accident, I said. I glanced at Woodrow, and he gave me an encouraging smile. He was a volunteer fireman, I went on, and I could hear my voice trembling, so her voice is shaking. He went into a burning house to save a baby, and he did save the baby, but he died. That's a lie, Buzz Osborne said out loud. All right, so what was the description of why Amos died according to Gypsy? How did he die?
He he was at a fire department.
Yep.
Well, he tried saving a baby from a fire.
Yep.
And he saved the baby, but also died.
Yeah, so he tried to save a babe, so he died in the fire, right? So that's what she's saying. And Buzz is saying she's lying. Okay, so this is kind of odd. That's a very rude thing to say, Mr. Collins scolded Buzz. Well, it is a lie. Let me tell you. Shut up, Buzz, Woodrow shouted. I was gripped with terror. Buzz was going to say it. He was going to make me hear it. My mother said that Amos Lee Master got his face so scarred up in that fire that you couldn't recognize him. And I said, "Shut up," Woodrow hollered as he stood up and moved towards Buzz. Boys, boys! Why is Mr. Collins screaming out boys? Why is the teacher yelling at them?
They're acting really rude to each other.
Yeah, so what's probably going to wind up happening? What are those two boys about to do?
You're gonna fight?
Yeah, you're going to fight. Mr. Collins tried to intervene, but his voice was drowned out by Buzz's next words. And he was married to the prettiest woman in the hills. We don't talk about this in front of Gypsy, Woodrow screamed. And then he raised his fist to Buzz. So he took a gun and he shot himself in the face, Buzz continued. Amos Lee Master killed himself. So there it was. The ugly thing was out. All right, so what is Buzz's claim about what happened to Amos?
He's saying that his fist got so scarred up in the fire
Yep.
that nobody would recognize him, and he shot himself.
Yeah, so that's what basically happened here. So now, all those little clues earlier on from the dreams should make a little bit of sense. So what has Gypsy been dreaming about this entire time? What was the dreams about? Yeah, the father, right? So she keeps seeing this dead animal. It's not the dead animal that she's seeing, it's her dead father. All right, so go on to Sakurativ. Did I record this? I don't know if I recorded it. Yeah, I